Hey everybody, it is Gregg Sharp. That's right, Gregg Sharp, that's me. And I just started with a clap. I haven't snapped and I haven't pointed. Because I don't officially want to get this episode started because I want to first off get into this box. This box is from one of our sponsors. No, I'm just kidding. Always point the knife away from you. Kids at home, don't try this. I'm a professional in the marketplace. Yes, I got to look over here. I'm a professional. All right, my little knife here. Stem Regen, guys, Stem Regen behind. One of our amazing sponsors, again, has come through with us. They have sent us out product for the, give it a little there, get it right in there. Product for the finals, guys. We got the Stem Regen box here going on. Always, always, always a pleasure with these folks. I'm going to leave this right here, right in front of my University of Tennessee. I'm going to put the box down here. Stem Regen has been with us now 2 years, guys. I can't say enough about the relationships that we build. We continue to have an amazing relationship with Stem Regen. We're ambassadors for them. You probably see, I kind of went over to that camera, go to this camera, go to that camera. You probably see us all the time posting about the codes and the deals. And listen, if you don't know what Stem Regen is, what you really need to do is educate yourself. And I mean that sincerely. I now have been doing Stem Regen for, I would say, at least 120 days. And if you haven't seen the chronicle difference of me being able to move weight, get stronger, heal, I think you're really missing, some of the messages that I'm trying to put out in the videos and in some of the drops that I do. Because ultimately, guys, I feel great. That's important to note. Now, is it because I'm eating better? Yes. Have I put on some weight? I have. I've gained a little bit of weight, but I think that weight also has been gained because of some strength and some mass. There's some good weight, there's some bad weight. But I got to tell you, rotationally, in terms of my flexibility, my motion, the pain in my shoulders, not experiencing it, hip pain, knee pain, all those pains have subsided because I'm healing. And I really feel that that's a big part of it because of Stem Regen. So whether you're buying it through us, which is as an ambassador, you're going to get a discount, or you're going to them directly, you would pay more to go with them. But either way, if you're not using Stem Regen, I think it really is something that you need to incorporate in your daily dietary curriculum. Your daily dietary curriculum. I had to say that really slow, just to make sure I said that right, because I was thinking under dairy, delivery, category or something like that, but no, it was daily dietary curriculum. Yes, Anthony's even smiling. I said it right 3 times. Maybe I didn't. I'd have to go back and rewind it, but it sounded right the 3rd time. So Stem Regen, guys, make sure you are supporting those that are supporting us. We've got more of our sponsors coming out. I'll be honest with you, Rockwell's got a nice watch coming our way for the finals, as well as they are being a segment sponsor for the house. And we're going to talk about that here shortly. So without further ado, I don't know, this is episode 64, 65, somewhere in there, 63, 64, 65. We're somewhere in the 60s. And remember, we're on Free Live Sports. Always make sure that you're watching Free Live Sports for Inside Arm Wrestling. So without further ado, clap, snap, and point. Glasses come off. Folks, what a great couple of weeks in arm wrestling. We have seen, for us personally with WSA, we have certainly seen the kickoff of our season. Going right over to Greg Brown's page. Greg Brown at the Baja Mexicali tournament may have put on the very best start of a year that we've seen. When you look at the number of participants that came down, just in volume to support Greg and the Mexican arm wrestling teams down there, to integrate a lot of the U.S. arm wrestlers into some of the Mexican teams that don't normally get to migrate to the north. I think that he did an amazing job, a tremendous job. Greg Brown is one of the real ambassadors of this sport. And I want you to understand what I'm saying to you about Gregg Brown. The man put on a tournament not to line his pockets. The man put on a tournament to further the benefit of the arm wrestling community. And the man put on a tournament in a location with a crowd that just screams success. You know, we had Don Underwood down there, and I can't tell you the stories that Don has told me on how just amazing the energy was, the volume was, the location, from the pre-meal with the athletes to the after party with the athletes in the community. Gregg Brown is on all levels one of the elite ambassadors of this sport, and we really, really can't tell you just how much we appreciate the fact that he got us started with the World Series of Arm Wrestling this year, as well as into the future years. I don't see our relationship between Gregg and I ever faltering in terms of not wanting to work together. It's really just how far Gregg wants to go in terms of how big he gets over time. I can see Gregg being one of the top entities, not just here, a domestic side or North American side, but maybe even international, if he ever got behind that level of wanting to do this. He is a quality guy. And you know what? I don't have to really spoil too much of who was there. Ole Moiseev was there. I believe he took the overall both left and right. Looking through Gregg's pictures, you had quite a few arm wrestlers from the U.S. up there. Great pictures, great videos. Anthony will kind of roll these as I'm talking. I'm picturing right now Matt Bustamante. Man, I remember when I first pulled Matt back in Arizona. What a great guy Matt is. Images taking moments before disaster. I hope that means he won. I don't know how he placed. I see Mr. Solis down there. Raul Solis went down. I know Saray Brown went down and his team from Colorado. Just a great level of arm wrestling and competition. Kudos. I can't say it enough. Kudos, guys. Kudos, Gregg Brown. So we are now coming into our second regional. It is Pulling for Perseverance up in Ogden, Utah, with Justin Green. I'm sorry, Justin, and I'm sorry, Gregg. I kind of combined both names with Justin Green and Trinity Green. Two amazing people, friends of mine, dear friends of mine. I mean, when I say dear friends, these are two people that if they called me and they needed me to be in Ogden, Utah, the question wouldn't be, when it would be, where am I going? I'm already on the road. That's how quality of people these two individuals are. And that's what really kind of makes WSA special, in my opinion. When you look around the board in terms of the quality of people that we are humbled to be associated with, Justin and Trinity are, again, cream of the crop, much like Gregg Brown. So they have a big tournament coming on. All of the proceeds go to Pulling for Perseverance and the suicide prevention. That's a huge thing, guys. It's intimate to Justin, as you saw in season 2. But it also is something that we don't talk about. I don't know that there's not too many people out there that haven't lost somebody to suicide. I know that I have personally, have lost friends to suicide, as well as lost, very good acquaintances. I've been at a point where I've had people call me and been, humbly, given an opportunity to help somebody not do something that they would regret. And suicide is something that is a topic that doesn't get enough discussion. And I think that's the reason why suicide is such a devastating end to someone's life, is because most of those people don't talk about it. They live with a hidden guilt, a hidden anxiety or depression, and they put this great smile on outside, but inside they're just torn apart. And we really need to make sure that we reach out to those around us to make sure they're okay on a sincerely okay basis. So Justin Green does amazing things for that community, and we're just, again, very, very proud to be a part of it. And if you're in Ogden, Utah, Dangerous Don Underwood will be there. That really went pretty well. Dangerous Don Hollywood Underwood will be there, representing WSA once again. And then the weekend after, Chicago, big Travis Bajan out there with the Chicago boys. He'll be out in, I think it's called, what is it called, Anthony? Something Island? Park Island? Bay Park Island? You would think I would know this, but we will get an update next week on Travis's, but we will be in the Chicago area on May 24th. Wow, it looks like the sun went down in our studio here. Hopefully the lights didn't go down. Our lighting is good. It's just the back end of the studio kind of went dark. A big cloud must have went over. Not because I said Chicago, just because that's what nature does when clouds go over. It blocks the sun. How about that? All right, so Greg Brown, we talked about Gregg. We talked about Ogden. We've talked about Travis. What else is going on in the world of arm wrestling, guys? Let's go back to a couple of updates from East versus West. East versus West was the King of the Table tournament this weekend and this past weekend. And a lot of weird things, I think, happened. I think in the dynamic of arm wrestling, I don't really know how this all plays out. I don't really know how they look to develop the next set of cards and how that's going to transpire for King of the Table, or for East versus West. But I want to go after the first conversation and talk about Todd Hutchins. Todd Hutchins retained the title in maybe a controversial way. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I think that was maybe one of the biggest upsets for me personally in this card, because I really felt that Todd was the superior athlete, but Rustam Babiev proved me wrong. And listen, Rustam is a multi-time world champion. There's not much that this man has not accomplished in his life. And he was at one point up in LA. I got to meet him. And although there's a communication difference, our level of communication that didn't enable us to communicate very well, he was an amazingly humble individual. So without taking anything away from Rustam, and I watched him pull in Atlantic City, I just felt that Todd was a superior athlete in terms of strength and in terms of his lane. And what I really mean by that is I really think that his side pressure would be something that Rustam was not going to be able to deal with. But let me tell you something, folks, I was completely wrong. Ultimately, if it wasn't for injury, Rustam would probably be the champ. And I know that's probably getting into Todd's mind a little bit. As a competitor, you win by many ways. Whether you win by pin, you win by fouls, you win by unable to continue. DNR, did not return or did not participate. DNP, but ultimately, you can't take away the fact that Rustam really controlled that whole match, and I think that Todd's really going to have to go back to the drawing board, because if that's where Rustam has shown this to expose Todd's real lane, maybe Todd's going to have to start really thinking about changing it up a little bit. But I'm a big Todd Hutchinson's fan. I was surprised on that one. I'm not going to lie. The other match I think that was a very weird match for me, which kind of alluded to a video that Devin had put out on Vitaly. I think Vitaly is an amazing arm wrestler. And it looks as if Vitaly with the win is going to be pulling at some level of an event with Devin next. It looks that that's going to be the case. Devin is really looking for an opportunity to build back to get to Levon. I think Vitaly is really the individual that is the heir apparent outside of Devin. But I don't know. I mean, that matchup is going to come. I'm sure of that, but I'm really not sure, to be honest with you, what that really looks like. I don't know if – I just don't know. I just don't think that Devin can be beat. I think structurally that they emulate size. They emulate lever size. I think we're going to see another Levon versus Devin here shortly. I just don't think that Vitaly is going to be able to get past them. Now, ultimately, in the world of any kind of athletics, eventually people move on. right? Eventually, age gets to a point where you can't beat Father Time. I don't think that's the place with Devin right now. However, perhaps the one thing that we aren't counting on is maybe that transitional time from when those two last competed to now. Maybe Vitaly has created a learning curve that may give him a better strategic value that we don't know yet. I don't know. I guess it's going to be up to the masses to determine if who's going to be the favorite in that match. But it'd be hard to think that Devin would not be the favorite when those two match up. Now going around the horn, unfortunately, some of my picks weren't so successful, which happens. I guess I'm not a great picker, but if I'm looking at the match card, and I haven't looked at all the results, but I did see, unfortunately, Paul Lynn did not do well. Unfortunately, one of my fan favorites, Lachlan Adair, unfortunately didn't get the nod on this one. I think Georgie had lost as well, but I don't think I had Georgie winning anyway. I just don't know. Michael is an amazing competitor. He's a world athlete. He's a great guy. Again, where Michael goes now is a weird dynamic because he deserves to pull on the world stage. Unfortunately, I'm just wondering if Father Time has gotten behind him a little bit. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I mean that in a real way. He's battled through a lot of injuries. He's battled through a lot of personal, situations. And sometimes the body just isn't able to respond to continue to grow. When you get somebody that's growing, okay, and gets to that level and continues to have a great growth spurt, or in terms of potential, it's hard to think that you're not going to be able to keep up, right? I'm going to work as hard as him, but so slowly your body normalizes, right? You hit a plateau. Can you put on too much weight, or can you put on more weight to gain more strength? But how does that affect your endurance? If I don't go after weight and I look to create a leaner, am I giving away too much size on the table? I don't know. I mean, I enjoy Michael Todd. I really do. But I think that Michael's probably thinking to himself, how do I get my current state of body and mind to a point where I can get to the world level, world championship level, and take one more crack at maybe a championship belt? Maybe, just maybe, and I don't know Michael's thought process, maybe it's a thought to go down in a weight class. I don't know if he can. The man is built thicker than a brick. But maybe it's to look to drop weight. I don't know. I don't talk to Michael in terms of a multiple weekly, monthly, annually basis. I say hi to him when we see each other out and about in tournaments. But I would love to pick his brain on that, where he really thinks that his biggest value to go after a title would be at this point. Sticking in the heavyweight, super heavyweight, dropping down to heavyweight, or what his real thoughts are. Or if he looks through a different avenue. Listen, we'd love to have him in a World Series of Arm Wrestling. I think he would do extremely well, and obviously our prize money is up there. I thought King of the Table 14 was a really good card, folks. I did. I really don't have a lot to I really don't have a lot to look at in terms of talking about controversy with it. I don't think that really the only disappointing value I thought was Todd not being able to, compete a little bit stronger than Rustam. I think that was my biggest oversight. And sometimes your favorites win and sometimes your favorites don't. But that doesn't matter. I stick with my favorites no matter who they pull. And I'll certainly continue to bet on them, at least in value and in theory as they compete in the future. So while I'm talking about this, guys, I actually want to touch on something we don't usually talk about. Our Inside Arm Wrestling has become more of we talk about that it's a fitness, sports and fitness, and we talk a little bit about all of that. But I want to go after the recent Pittsburgh Pro. I want to segue over to bodybuilding. And I want to touch on this because I think this is a topic that the sports world is, and I'm going to type in Nick Walker's page. I follow Nick Walker here, Nick the Mutant Walker. I follow him as a bodybuilder. I'm an avid bodybuilder fan. I've been for 4 decades. Since I can remember being young enough to know what weights and magazines were, I've always been enamored with bodybuilding and weightlifting. But I think this weekend in Pittsburgh, and congratulations to Pittsburgh Pro, because they had first time they've had open bodybuilding at Pittsburgh. They've always been a classic show, an amateur show. They brought the top Olympians in to do guest posing. This year they brought in a great field of bodybuilders that was capped off by Derek Lunsford and by Nick Walker. It came down to those two. And I watched the show, and I'm going to stand by what I said. I think that sometimes in sports, we get sidetracked on the value of sports versus the sports value. And I think that's what happened to Nick this weekend. And I think this has happened since you can go back to when Arnold Schwarzenegger won his 7th Mr. Olympia in 1980. We jumped the shark. Back then, you had Joe and Ben Weider. They were the promoters. They had the Mr. Olympia. They were the men who started Muscle and Fitness and all these magazines. And they really created modern bodybuilding as it is today. They truly are the pioneers of modern bodybuilding. But in 1980, bodybuilding jumped the shark. It became a competition that no longer had the best bodybuilder in the world win the show. They had the best bodybuilder for bodybuilding win the show. And it became a brand instead of becoming an objective, albeit subjective, but an objective / subjectively fair show. And we've seen that over the years. And people can say that they don't like when people say robbed. And I know that Tyler Mannion came on and delivered a very eloquent dissertation on why Derek won versus why Nick became in second, even though they were in a proverbial tie. But here's the real thoughts. This is an inaugural show. Nick Walker, for 2 years, has not had the best of luck going into the Olympia. Obviously, his hamstring tear 2 years ago and then last year. I will say that we'll call it a professional and personal breakdown, kept him from stepping on stage. So when you create these kind of hiccups in track record, your ambassador-ness or being an ambassador of the sport begins to suffer when it comes to promoters because there's inconsistency, right? Derek has not had that inconsistency. Derek came in from the 212 class, jumped up, made a huge splash. I think within 2 years, he won the Mr. O, being last year, or 2 years ago. Excuse me, Samson Dowda won, but 2 years ago, you had Derek Lunsford edge out Hadi Chopin, and as well as Nick Walker and Samson. So the answer is that Derek Lunsford has become a very embedded ambassador in the sport. Derek Lunsford is good for bodybuilding. Was Derek Lunsford the best bodybuilder on stage last weekend in Pittsburgh? In my opinion, the answer was no. Bodybuilding also has a rule of thumb that a bodybuilder has to come in any value when you're the champ in as good a quality of shape as or better than what your last show was in order to get any nod. And in my opinion, Nick Walker exposed Derek tremendously between the Arnold and now that Derek was not in the shape he was in the Arnold. Now, granted, if you're in the better shape than everybody else and you are the champ, then you get the nod. But in this case, I don't think structurally, I don't think condition-wise, I don't think on any level Derek can honestly look in the mirror and say, I deserve to win that show. I don't think so. I think as a competitor in sports, I don't know that I could. Now, I could convince myself that I won, and I certainly can convince myself that winning that $100,000 and all the accolades that went with it was a great thing. And I can convince myself that I'm the inaugural champion of Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh Pro. all those things I can convince myself as an athlete, but deep down as an athlete, you really know if you win or lost. And I think Derek is probably going through some conflict to know that he was gifted in some value this show. And unfortunately, I think, Nick, albeit he's taking it like a champ and a real professional, because he understands that, if he complains, that's only going to hurt that value of seeing him as an ambassador. You look at Kai Green when he complained. You look at Sean Roden for a long time, who was never given the right nods because of the fact that he had what they would consider an attitude issue. You look at Big Ramy when he first came up and didn't get the nod, and then when he got taken away the title. Now, obviously, he had eventually some real body deficiencies in terms of some atrophy and some synapse issues. You look back at, Nasser. And Nasser was another example. He just wasn't a great ambassador of bodybuilding. You look at Hadi Chupin, and how did Samson beat Hadi? I think that Samson really showed that he was an ambassador, where Hadi doesn't really connect with the people outside of his country. Now, he's an incredible ambassador within the Middle East. But outside of that, I just don't know that it connects. So I really believe that when people talk about branding and when people talk about athletes and people talk about how they want to structure their competition, if all chips were fair, in my opinion, looking back at the weekend, I think Nick Walker should have been the undeniable champion. And just so you understand, 3 judges at prejudging had Nick in the lead. 2 did not. The difference in this show was that 1 switched from prejudging to finals to give the value to Derek. They felt that Derek looked better at finals within a span of 4 hours, which we know the body can change in 4 hours. You can tighten up, you can loosen up, you can retain some water. There's lots of things that happen, right? I mean, bodybuilding is really, really a tough sport. But for me, between that, I'd love to know who that judge was. And they haven't made that announcement, and they may not make that announcement. I'd love to know who that judge was that changed their mind. Because I'm going to guarantee you that the 3 judges that had Nick, 1, 2, and 3, 2 of those 3 did not change their mind. And the 2 judges that had Derek, 1 and 2, didn't change their mind either. These 2 judges were politically, positioned on Derek. There's no doubt about it. Derek Lunsford took those 2 judges because they are Derek Lunsford fans. They did not objectively judge the prejudging. 100% they did not. There's no way that they could have felt that Derek was better than Nick at that time. So you already had 2 people politically poised against you. You had 1 person that flipped the switch that made this tie, right? So objectively, if this was really a sport that was, which what I'll call fair, okay, Nick Walker should have had a score of 5. Derek Lunsford should have had a score of 10, all right? So let's just say, hypothetically, that the finals did go that way. Maybe 2 of those judges hung on, and 3 of the judges went the other way. So now, if you look at it, Nick Walker would have had a score of 8 in the final round, and Derek Lunsford would have had a score of 6. So you take the 2 scores together, Nick would have had a 13, Derek would have had a 16. So ultimately, and this is real, folks. I mean, you can do the math. Ultimately, Nick was the winner. There's the 2 judges really, boxing has been tarnished with bad judges. UFC has been tarnished with bad judges. It happens. People say, oh, it's all subjective. It's hard to be subjective when it's so obvious, right? But if you really look at the fairness of what this competition was all about, Nick should have been an easy 5-point across the board for the prejudging round. If you want to say that he faded a little bit in the finals, I'll give you that. I think he was maybe at that last call out of the three different times around. Maybe he started to lose his midsection slightly, but let's be honest with you. He did not lose the final round unanimously across the board, all in second. So ultimately, you could say what you want. You could tell people that it's not politics, but it really is. And I wish that they would just say it, that we want the best bodybuilders and we want the best for bodybuilding, and we're willing to subjectively make the the considerations based upon that. So having said that, kudos to Nick Walker. Hopefully this weekend at the New York Pro, you are the winner. You definitely deserve the nod from last week. If the gods are favorable to you, then we should see you in the winner's circle, which I think is extremely extremely valuable for the Olympia this coming year. I think that a Nick Walker is certainly a top 3. And if Nick brings this package that he brought to the Pittsburgh Pro and tightens up, if he can tighten up, but if he tightens up just 1% more, he might be Mr. Olympia this year. And kudos to him. I think he's a great story and he deserves it. Anyway, folks, that's it for Inside Arm Wrestling. I'm probably at what time there, Anthony? What am I at? 30 minutes?
About.
All right, 30 minutes. I can do that really good. I get that 30-minute segment dialed down. So, with further ado, clap, snap, point. Guys, have a great week. It is a big week. Utah Regional, get out there. Make sure you're watching us on Tubi, on Amazon, and Radiate will be out soon. Folks, let me tell you something. We are going to just crush it. I can't wait. If you haven't seen us on Free Life Sports, make sure you turn into Free Life Sports. Everywhere that Inside Arm Wrestling is, we want you to be. Have a great week, and remember, I'll be back. No, I just wanted to say that because I put Arnold in there. Don't have to remember that at all. All right, folks, have a great week. See you next week.